Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homo, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. Coming up this hour on the most dangerous show on the airwaves, the Seattle Times proves why it is completely obsolete. And schools are giving out dolls with removable genitals. I wish I was making that up. Plus, don't forget, my friends, we're going to cover the latest insanity with Fauci. But before we get to any of that, time for your daily dose of adrenaline.
You want me to stick this into my heart? Are you f***ing nuts?
How many people need to die before Seattle voters wake up? I'm not even kidding at this point. I'm not even exaggerating. How many people need to die? Before we get into more mistakes that the incompetent elected officials and their appointees made with the shooting this weekend, we got new information about lives that are at risk right now. Maybe, unsure, unclear, because of how incompetent Seattle leadership actually is. And when I say the word leadership, for those of you watching on the live stream on Facebook, Rumble, X, and YouTube, I'm using giant air quotes when I say the word leadership. So, there was another disastrous press conference today about the shooting. And the first thing you notice, the only people speaking at this press conference, Katie Wilson and Chief Sean Barnes. No Pramila Jayapal. No Gurmay Zahalai. No Bob Kettle. No Bob Ferguson. Why? They don't want to be part of this bleep show either. They realize if we can let them handle this, we can just scoot out the back and not have anything to do with this. Let them deal with this mess, which just shows what cowards they are. And how there's no leadership there either. They just don't want to be blamed. They want to stay away from the blame. So, once again, Katie Wilson proves she's in over her head. But the biggest news to come out of the press conference today was there might be another suspect on the loose. Now, for those of you who need to be caught up a little bit, my brother-in-law says to me yesterday, we went to see an early screening of Spider-Man. We'll have that review for you tomorrow. We go to see the early screening of Spider-Man. We're sitting in the theater. He goes, so what's up with the shooting? Why is the mayor incompetent? Why is the police chief a moron? What's going on? I just saw a few things in the news that everybody's mad at them. And as I explained every piece of this, he said, no, really? No, come on. You're making that up. You're exaggerating. Don't radio me, Ari. Tell me what's actually going on. He couldn't believe it was all actually happening. So what happens? You have the shooting Sunday night at Bite of Seattle, this annual festival, which we've discussed. 5 hours go by before they tell the media that there is a suspect on the loose. They do not give a description of the suspect. Then yesterday, we find out that another suspect was one of the people who was shot and killed at the festival. Don't forget, 3 people were shot and killed. 4 people were injured. All 4 people, including the 2-year-old child, have been discharged from the hospital. Thank God. So now we find out today that there maybe, could be another suspect we're looking for. We don't know, but there might be another suspect. So first suspect had 5 hours lead time before anybody said anything to the media. And then after that, they've had 48 hours because no description of this person was given except for a young man. By the way, I picked up my son. My wife picked up my son from the airport yesterday, came back from a camp he was working at this summer. And I said to him, were you the shooter at the Bite of Seattle? He said, no, why? And I go, well, you're a young man. You fit the description. You're a young man. He goes, Dad, I was in California. I go, I know, but you're a young man. It could be you. That's how ridiculous this is. That's how insane this is. So now this latest person has had from 6 o'clock on Sunday when this happened until 12:30 this afternoon when this press conference was, and they didn't give a description. In fact, we're not even sure this person exists. Maybe there's a second suspect. You know what might fix this? Cameras. Cameras might fix this. Oh, wait a minute. There's no city cameras anywhere near Seattle Center. The closest one is 1.5 miles away in downtown Seattle. There are none of the Seattle city cameras anywhere near Seattle Center. And every time Katie Wilson says there are cameras because she's so worried about being tagged with shutting off the cameras before, I think she's talking about private ones. You know, the city lists all the locations of all their surveillance cameras. I went on their website. I pulled up every single location. The closest actual city of Seattle surveillance cameras are in downtown Seattle near the retail corridor. That's the closest ones to Seattle Center. There are none near Climate Pledge Arena, none near the Mopop, none near the Space Needle, none near the Children's Museum, none near any of that. So, weren't prepared for that, and we have a mayor who doesn't want to expand the program and a mayor who wants to turn off the cameras. Don't forget, this mayor is also anti-police, and the cameras were supposed to make up for the fact that we don't have enough police officers, and she's not successful at hiring more police officers. See, this is the problem when you virtue signal about everything. Oh, we want to defund the police, and we want to give the money to the community. Want to give the money to the community, you say, huh? There was a curveball at the presser today. A curveball at the presser today. Where all of a sudden, this woman challenges Katie Wilson. This woman calls her out because apparently this woman is from a nonprofit that's supposed to be dealing with this kind of stuff. And they're having a little problem with socialist Seattle Mayor Katie Wilson. Give a listen.
Thank you. I'm Dr. Jacqueline Bowles with Redeem Wellness Center, one of your partners, one of your 19 agencies, Mayor, that you have working in the evidence-based violence intervention project. We are part of the hospital-based part. We are also part of the state's evidence-based group. Are you aware we have not been paid? We have not been paid by the city since April. But we have been working. We have been working. We have been receiving clients. We have been receiving referrals. We have been taking care of gunshot victims and their families. We have not stopped any work. But this office refuses to process invoices, refuses to pay us under a reimbursable grant. I have written your office, Joy Hollingsworth's office, your office. How many offices does it take? And this is why we have a problem.
Okay. So the socialist isn't paying her workers. The socialist who talks about workers' rights and affordability hasn't been paying her workers. But something better than that, with a little help from our friend Google, one search. This was on the Seattle mayor's website. You ready for this one? Human Services Department invests in community-led strategies as part of Seattle's citywide effort to reduce gun violence. Seattle's investing $14.7 million in community partnerships as the first step in a broader strategy to improve safety across the city by working closely with city council, city departments, community partners, community experts, and families who have lost loved ones to gun violence. Seattle's building the coordinated response this moment demands. This approach centers prevention, focuses resources where violence is most concentrated, and ensures trusted community leaders are at the center of work to disrupt and interrupt cycles of harm. Awardees of the grant include Redeemed Wellness Center. So, Mayor of Seattle says there's $14.7 million they're giving out. Looks like they never actually gave it out because she doesn't know how to actually run an office. She doesn't know how to delegate responsibility. She doesn't know how to pay her bills because her parents were paying her bills all these years. And do I think this program is going to work at preventing gun violence? Of course not. But the program, which she is touting as the one that's going to prevent gun violence so she doesn't have to fund the police department, hasn't been paid. If that is not an encapsulation of everything wrong with Katie Wilson's administration, I don't know what is. Now, I have reached out to Dr. Jacqueline Bowles. And Kevin, I invited her on the show because even though I may disagree with their methods, I think we both have the same enemy. What do we say? The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Can you imagine? They're going to get their funding right away as soon as it's, that Dr. Bowles of those guys we gave the money to just went on Hoffman's show. And she's calling you out on Hoffman's show after calling you out at that press conference. How do we get this woman paid? How do we do this so Hoffman doesn't have this ammo against us? Yeah, I invited her on the show. I hope she actually reaches out and responds to my email and comes on the show. If anybody knows Dr. Bowles, please tell her there's an email sitting in her account from one Ari Hoffman. I was so excited I wrote it from my cell phone, as a matter of fact. So she's got that sitting right there. And speaking of delegating responsibility, who else has she delegated to? Police Chief Sean Barnes, the guy who doesn't actually live in Washington State, who commutes back and forth to Chicago. How's that going so far? Well, we don't know if there's another suspect. We have no idea. Wouldn't it be nice to check out those cameras? Hey, here's something else. Why aren't you going to Seattle Center and saying, do you guys have cameras? Can we check them out? Also, within the 5 hours you guys had before you went to the media, you guys couldn't review some footage and check this out? You know what time the shooting was. You know all the camera angles you have. They're all set up in one room. We had more information coming from social media than you guys actually had. What's the problem? Well, we have 3 suspects. 1 is in custody. 1 we believe is dead. 1 is on the run. He's wearing a yellow shirt. He has black skin. Oh, sorry. That's why we can't say it, right? We're not allowed to say we have a gang violence problem in Washington State among the black community. If it was among the Jewish community, I would want to fix it. I would want to address it. But instead in Seattle, we say, let's release the gang members. Last year, there was a Seafair event. 2 years ago, there was a Seafair parade. People brought guns, pulled them out, started shooting at each other. They released them. So they could say they're serious about gun violence, but they're not paying the organization they say can address it, and they're not keeping the people in jail who commit the crimes. Also, we find out today the various weapons that were being used. Hey, how do a whole bunch of teenagers get guns when you have all these really strict laws about them? How'd they get automatic weapons? How'd they have high-capacity magazines? I thought all those things are banned. How did they do that? So what happens immediately? Bob Ferguson, Pramila Jayapal, Maritza Rivera, the Seattle City Council member who wasn't at any of these press conferences. We need to do something about gun violence. Oh, spare me. You have a gang violence problem that you don't want to discuss. And you always plead them out or you release them. You do everything you can to get them out of jail. You want to abolish the jails. You want to abolish the police. You want to give the money to agencies like this Redeemed organization, and you won't even pay them. So are you incompetent? Is this what happens when virtue signaling meets rubber hits the road where you actually have to do the job? You can't actually get it done. So you know how yesterday I told you I was wandering through Seattle Center and the place was a mess? Well, apparently, when the police closed up Seattle Center and wouldn't allow any of the vendors to get anything out of their stands because it was a crime scene, when they were done, somebody told them, yeah, just leave the place. Just leave the place. Just go home. So as a result, Como News had a story today. People looted their stuff. Oh, shock, shock. People went and stole stuff in Seattle Center when it's just sitting out there in the middle of the night. People took their stuff. People messed with their food. At a food festival, when you got a whole bunch of homeless people around, people did that when it was left unguarded. Whose brilliant idea was that? Whose idea was that? And then it gets worse. Hey, we know it was a crime scene, but make sure to reopen it because we don't want to look like we're a crime-infested city. So make sure all the tourists can go to the Space Needle. Make sure all the tourists can go to the Chihuly Glass Museum. And make sure all the tourists can go anywhere they want, just not the Armory. The Armory, the food court, don't let them in the food court, even though it's not where the shooting was. Don't let them in the food court because we don't want them in the food court. But you can let them anywhere else in Seattle Center. Sir, can we let them in the crime scene or should we keep that area roped off? No. Let them in the crime scene. Just let them in the crime scene. Let them walk through. Sir, you sure about that? Yeah, take down the caution tape. I walked through the crime scene yesterday. I literally walked it. And then today, guess what? The police were sent back to go look for things they missed the first time. Look, I understand that you have vendors who want to get out of there. I understand vendor stuff is basically being held hostage by the investigation. I get it. But you also have a gunman on the loose, and you need any clues you can find. Years ago, when I was a vendor for Seafair, and we were down at the pits for Seafair Sunday, I had a wedding to get to. And I said, okay, if we pack up by this time and I send my employees on their way by this time, I can run home, throw on a suit, and run to the wedding. I didn't count on a hydroplane flipping. So a hydroplane flips, and that slows down everything, and they got to pull the thing off the water. I was stuck there for hours. There were no fans left because by then everybody was done. Everybody wanted to go home, and the Blue Angels had flown already. But this hydroplane flipped. Everybody saw the flip, and they're like, now we saw the flip. We can go home. Because, people are watching the hydroplanes just waiting for one of them to flip. So now that it flipped, they can go. Saw the Blue Angels, they can go. I was stuck there for hours. Literally for hours. And did it suck? Yeah, but I understood it. They had things they had to do. They didn't want us running over the 10 spectators who were left afterwards. Does it suck having to leave your stuff behind in Seattle Center? Yes, but the area should have been secured. And who's in charge of all these police? Sean Barnes. And what's being missed from this whole story? The fact that I'm hearing from my friends in the Seattle Police Department that they did everything right. They hopped on that suspect right away, got him into custody, secured the area. It's the command staff that's blowing everything. The incompetence of Sean Barnes and Katie Wilson is making the entire police department look bad. So Sean Barnes, the incompetent police chief who's there, is getting shredded yet again with the response to all this because he's the public face of the agency. So what happens? He's at the presser, and he gets asked about what happened yesterday. Let's remember what happened yesterday. At a press conference, he's leaving the room, and he did not like being called out for living in Chicago and not Seattle, which is why he had to fly back here and wasn't here for yet another emergency incident. This is what happened yesterday.
I have been here working as hard as I can for this city from the day I got here. You got that?
There are reports
you listen
but there
to
are
me.
reports that you are not in town often.
There are reports are wrong. Do you understand?
Let's go, man. Let's go.
You understand?
So when we're
I work.
Let's go.
He gets dragged out by his own staff member because it looks like he's about to punch the guy in the face. Looks like he's about to punch him out. So, of course, the media today is going to ask him about this.
Chief Barnes, can you address what exactly happened yesterday, that heated exchange following the press conference? What was that all about?
Yeah, I would describe it as a heated exchange, but that's okay. Listen, I respect our media. I respect what you do. I consider you a big part of the community. I wish I could do it, but I don't have a face for television. But let me say this. I'm always passionate about what I do as a police officer. I'm always passionate about what I do as a community member, and sometimes that passion is in full display, especially if someone is questioning my work ethic or my integrity. But I understand that your job is to ask tough questions, and so I respect that. I want you to know that, and that's for everyone in here. You have a tough job, and I do understand that. Having a 2-year-old shot should evoke strong emotions in people, and for me, I question, what can we do better? I spoke about that yesterday at the vigil. I think some of you may have been there. For the last 6 years.
Oh, I can't anymore. He's just too passionate. That's why he almost ripped the head off of a reporter who, interestingly enough, is from an outlet that makes the stranger look moderate, and yet they're asking the exact same questions I have. When you've lost the entire media, you're in big trouble. Thank God Jonathan Cho was at this presser today, because you would think one of them would ask, hey, you still living in Chicago? How often are you commuting to Chicago? You see your family a lot? What's going on there?
Do you want to just squash the discourse about, you not being in town enough?
Yeah, part of being a leader is being here, being visible, and being present. Part of being a leader in a major city is that sometimes I have obligations, and I wanted to be at the conference to support one of our community members who was getting an award, and one of our community service officers that was also getting an award from the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives.
How often do you travel to Chicago? Your wife and kids still live there. I'd like to know how often on weekends you travel there, and who's paying for that?
Certainly, I don't travel as often as I would like to. I think any reports that I'm gone every weekend are grossly misstated. I don't have that kind of money. I'm here in Seattle. I love the neighborhood that I live in. I love my community. They love me. They know me. They see me all the time. Don't love the rent that I'm paying, but, affordability is something that we're working on. Is that right, Mayor? So I feel good about being here in Seattle. I love this community. Thank you.
Jonathan Cho asked that question, and there were no follow-ups. So the guy who's making in excess of $374,000 a year, who has rent on an apartment near Seattle Stadium, otherwise known as Lumen Field. There's no community there. He's in a high-rise. He doesn't see his neighbors. Don't believe a thing about that. He gets put in the armored SUV and driven to police headquarters, which is a few blocks away. He doesn't see his community. That is complete garbage. On the weekends, he flies back home to see his family in Chicago, and we filed public disclosure requests to find out who is paying for that. But then, Mayor, we're working on affordability because my rent's too high, because I refuse to move my family here. But I have two places. I've got two domiciles. I've got an apartment in a really expensive, swanky building near the stadiums. But it's too expensive. Affordability, I make $374,000 a year. For what? We would be better off with nobody running the police department, because then the line officers could actually do their jobs. This is complete incompetence. And while we're joking about affordability on my second house, while we're joking about that, you have one suspect, possibly two on the loose. You're not doing anything about gang violence. The dumb solutions you've come up with that have no chance of working, you aren't even paying for. You're trying to defund the police. You don't want more security cameras. You can't even check security camera footage. You couldn't even get together to have one coherent press conference in the 48 hours since this shooting. And you want us to believe this is the best we can do? When will Seattle wake up? When will Seattle voters realize this is who you put into power? This is who they have trust in. This is who they appointed. How many more people have to die before you guys wake up to the stupidity that continues being voted for here in Seattle? Not just that, my friends. Some people are actually still subscribing to the Seattle Times, which is endorsing these morons and these moronic policies. We'll tell you about the outlet's latest dumb mistake when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Pam from Lake Stevens is worried about my blood pressure. Pam says I'm too worked up today. Kevin's laughing in there because he's kind of worried about it too. I'll tell you something, Pam. I am furious about this. I am actually furious. You know, some hosts, they tell some people this in radio training. They say, you know, you gotta put more energy in there. You gotta be yourself plus 10%. You know what they told me when I was first getting this gig? You know what the talent coach guy told me when I first got the radio gig? He said, Ari, I tell everybody else be themselves plus 10%. I'm telling you, can you take it down like 50? You're a little too intense. So that's how you know it's actually genuine in here. Yes, Pam, I will take some deep breaths. See, you just brought some pressure relief for me to laugh about things a little bit. I could take a few breaths before getting furious at the Seattle Times. Well, let me tell you about the Seattle Times for a second. So let me make sure I got this right. We have one suspect on the loose. We have another suspect who may be on the loose. The mayor allegedly hasn't been paying providers of her own gun diversion programs. The police chief admits he lives in Chicago, but has an apartment in Seattle and complains about affordability. There were no metal detectors at Seattle Center. None. It took him 5 hours to have a press conference. What's the headline in the Seattle Times today about the press conference? What do you think it was? Okay, so some of you are going, racism, right? Okay, you're close. You're so close. No. Guns. They're worried about the guns. So the big reveal from today's press conference is that a ghost gun was among the 3 firearms recovered with shell casings at the Seattle. It wasn't the guns who killed anybody. It was the people carrying the guns. I just gave you 8 scandals in one press conference. 8 scandals. And the Seattle Times is reporting about the guns being used. That's the headline you went with? Okay, let me give you another peek behind the curtain. When I was first started working for the Post Millennial and other outlets, they said, Ari, the headlines got to be the thing that gets you. Otherwise, you're not going to read the rest of it, right? Got to be a strong headline. So whatever you think the strongest part of your story is, that's your headline. That's what we do on KVI.com with all our articles. How can we get them in with the headline? You guys went with the type of guns? Not Seattle Center was looted. Not the police chief lives in Chicago. Not the fact that, are we paying for his travel? Are we not paying for his travel? The mayor hasn't been paying providers? Instead, you guys went, oh, wait, sorry. What should have been the marquee? Maybe another suspect on the loose. Police chief unsure. Instead, you guys went with the guns. Well done. If you still have a subscription to the Seattle Times, cancel it. It's free to read KVI.com. You want a crossword puzzle? You can get them online for free. Here's something else, my friends. There's another festival in Seattle this weekend, except it's a private festival. It's Seafair is this weekend. Did anybody in that press room ask about Seafair security? No. You know why? What does Seafair have at its entrances, guys? I know because I go every year. Metal detectors, security checks, bag checks. They have them at the entrances. So they're not worried about Seafair. But you should be worried. Do you have enough police officers? What's the suspect look like? So we can tell the security guards at Seafair. Because Seafair is in South Seattle, and a lot of the gang violence is in South Seattle. Now, I'm going to tell you something. I don't worry about Seafair. I'm going to be going to Seafair. I love Seafair. I wouldn't miss Seafair for anything. I even went during Sequester Fair when Barack Obama cut the funding for the Blue Angels and everything. I will never miss a Seafair. But some people are going to be concerned about this, and this is going to affect Seafair. What are you saying to give them confidence that they're going to be safe? I have confidence in Seafair because I know the security at Seafair because I used to be a vendor for Seafair, and I used to work with Seafair, and I go to Seafair every single year. What are you doing to guarantee the safety of the tens of thousands of people who are going to come here this weekend for Seafair? Well, there might be another person on the run. We're not sure. I don't know why Chief Barnes kind of sounds like Kermit the Frog there. I'm not really sure. That's basically what he is. Kermit the Frog's way smarter. He has to deal with all them Muppets. They're crazy. And yet we get Chief Barnes. Hey, you know what the next question should have been? Chief Barnes, you going to be in town this weekend for Seafair, or are you going to Chicago because you don't like the noise from the Blue Angels? Insane. Absolutely insane. Okay, Pam's right. I got to get the blood pressure down. So how about we do some good stories about what President Trump said about his friend Lindsey Graham today. It'll bring a smile to your face, even in such a sad situation, guaranteed. That awesome audio for you is up next. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. I got a lot of great texts from you guys about the chaos in Seattle. But Pam's right. Ari's got to take a breather for a second here. So instead, we're going to pivot over to Lindsey Graham's funeral. And you go, Ari, that doesn't sound more upbeat. Actually, I got to say, I usually find that a funeral reflects a person's life. And since Lindsey Graham was so full of joy, this was more of a celebration of life than it was a really depressing funeral. First, we heard from the Vice President, J.D. Vance, and here's what he said.
Lindsey Graham loved people from all walks of life, I think in part because of the way that he grew up, because of the fact that he wasn't handed everything. He was fascinated in everybody. He was fascinated in the wait staff in the Senate dining room. He was fascinated in the people who made the food. He was fascinated in the lowest staffer who had been hired 3 days earlier. He was fascinated by, of course, the very leadership of our country. And I think he was fascinated in people because he loved people and he was interested in them. He was the kind of guy who would walk into the Senate. And when he walked into the Senate, this was a guy who couldn't have stood more than 5'6" or 5'7", but he'd swashbuckle jacket open like he was 6'5". He had an attitude to him, and it's one of the reasons why Lindsey Graham was Lindsey Graham. But he would walk into the United States Senate, and he would slap you on the back. He would greet the person who served his food. He treated everybody the same because he was fascinated and he loved every single person in this chamber. And that's a great testament to the man.
You know, that's not something that came easily for me. I'm a very social person. So if I want to talk to you, I'm very, very social, right? But also, I don't really like to talk to people when I'm not in the mood to be social. And I think that's for a lot of people. Even before I was recognizable around here, my wife said to me one time, she goes, I came back from the grocery store from the PCC, and they're so nice there. I had the loveliest conversation with the cashier. And I go, what are you talking to the green-haired crazy people for over there? And she's like, Ari, be nice. Like, talk to the people. And you know what? Ever since then, I've been really, really nice. This is like 20 years ago. But it's not second nature to me. I have to, like, actually work at that. For Lindsey Graham, it seemed to be second nature, where he's just nice to everybody. Right? I mean, you guys see how worked up I get. Being nice, I have to work at that. That's like something I really have to do. So anyway, that's something we can all emulate. It really, really is. And also, I saw this article one time about what's your Uber rating. You know, whenever you give an Uber rating, they get to rate you also. You have to go to the website to check it out. But yes, there's an Uber rating for you. I always try to chat up the drivers. I don't want to have a bad rating. I want everybody to like me. So, yeah, make sure you think about that like Lindsey Graham. Mind you, POTUS, President of the United States, really rose to the occasion. Here's what he opened with.
As you remember, Lindsey and I did not exactly get off to the best of starts. Running against each other. Back in 2016, Lindsey said something rather nasty on his flight to becoming the next president of the United States. So naturally, I did something that I shouldn't have done. I shared his personal cell phone number with the millions of people that happened to be watching that particular day as I made a speech, a very important speech. And I remember the number 202-228-0292 if anybody wants to give it a shot. His phone exploded. He said, I had that number for 20 years. His phone totally, I don't know what he did with it, but it exploded. That was the beginning of a friendship in a way. But it was Lindsey who had the last laugh, because while I blew up his phone for one day, we became great friends, and Lindsey did not stop calling me for the next 10 years. It was not easy. I always cherish the memories of our golf games, and only because of his really, and I will say, this memorial service, it's so hard to say. A memorial service for Lindsey, it's hard to say. But I'll admit that one time Lindsey Graham and Annika Sorensen actually beat me and Gary Player together. Can you believe that? Annika played very well that day, actually.
I mean, for him to admit that, that's a huge deal. For him to admit that publicly. But it does go to show that just because you don't like somebody today doesn't mean you can't be friends with them tomorrow. It really just does go to show that. Also, let's not forget his very, very humble beginnings.
That pool hall where his parents raised him, to the halls of the United States Senate, where he was respected and loved. The son of South Carolina became one of the most important men in the most important country on earth. In a city where politicians often become jaded and cynical, Lindsey Graham never lost the old-fashioned American idealism that brought him to the highest levels of government and life. He took his duty seriously without taking himself too seriously. He was unwavering in his principles, but always willing to listen. He always wanted to listen. And one thing about Lindsey that we all know, he never quit. You wanted him to quit, you waited for him to quit, but he would never quit. Above all, Lindsey Graham loved America, and he believed in the American people. If you shared that view, you had a friend in Lindsey. If you didn't share it, there was no fiercer or more constant opponent. Our nation needs more men and women like that great person sitting, laying wherever he may be. I think I know where he is, and I think he's up there. I think he's watching us. I'm pretty sure of it.
I mean, POTUS really stepped up. I don't always like POTUS's response to death, but I mean, I gotta say, really, really did a great job with this one. And you can't help but doing that with somebody like Lindsey Graham, who I didn't hear anybody say a bad word about them except for radical Looney Tunes on the internet. Real people. Democrats, Republicans, leftists, centrists, conservatives, all had nice things to say about Lindsey Graham. Really, really did. Isn't that the kind of person we all aspire to be? Even me, who have to work at being nice. So, that's the kind of thing. That's the kind of people we aspire to be. Now, over on our text line, I think we all have to work harder together because you guys have some great texts here, and this one's my absolute favorite. Talking about Sean Barnes, who's renting a really swanky apartment here in Seattle while his family lives in Chicago. He's commuting back and forth, which is why he's not here when there's a mass shooting. This one here from the 253. Hey, Ari, maybe Sean Barnes can get one of those little tiny homes that Katie Wilson put together. That way his rental will be cheaper, like free, and he'll be closer to the crime. You know what? That is a great idea, 253. That is an amazing, amazing idea. It'll be completely free. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I think that's a great idea. This one here, 206. Ari, does anyone think the police chief is going to so many conferences because he is networking, looking for another job? Yes, I 100% do. In fact, there are rumors that he's looking in another blue city, one closer to home, you might say. There are rumors about that. I have not confirmed them. Here's one from Robin Lakewood. So does the chief think Seattle's safe enough for his kids? Or he doesn't think it's safe enough for his kids, which is why he leaves them in Chicago? Okay, as bad as we are, we're not having like 47 murders a weekend yet, Rob. But that is an absolutely good point. An absolutely good point. This one here, and I think this is very, very clever. This is from Dennis. Dennis says, I have an idea. Since you walk around Seattle Center, he's talking to me, why don't you go look for the cameras in the area of the shooting and ask if there are any owners that we can see their videos? Funny you should mention it. I'm actually going to Seattle Center tonight for a very, very specific reason. And up next, I'm going to tell you what that reason is and how it actually factors into politics, how it's protecting women's sports, and how I might end up at a Storm game. Tell you all about it when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. So there's this event tonight outside of Climate Pledge Arena because the Indiana Fever, that's the women's basketball team, is coming to play the Seattle Storm. And you're thinking to yourself, who cares about the WNBA? Well, who's on the Indiana Fever? Caitlin Clark, that's number one, but nobody's really talking about her these days. Who are they talking about? Sophie Cunningham, her teammate. Because Sophie Cunningham said girls' sports should be for girls, and she doubled, tripled, quadrupled, and just kept going with that. Then she sold out a sneaker line, so the left is really, really mad. The left is furious. In fact, my favorite video I saw this weekend, somebody bought a Sophie Cunningham sweatshirt. I'm sorry, a jersey. And they lit it on fire. And I'm thinking to myself, she's laughing all the way to the bank. You bought her shirt to light it on fire. This person does not look like they were a fan beforehand. That looked like a brand new jersey. That did not look like a well-used jersey like my Mets jerseys do. A well-used, a well-loved jersey. No, they bought a brand new jersey to virtue signal and light it on fire. So you know who gets money from that? Sophie Cunningham. Well done. Well done. Congratulations. You played yourself. So what happens? There is a rally today to support Sophie Cunningham. Our friend Brandy Cruz has been pushing this. So today at 5 o'clock, you can listen to my show on the way. At 5 o'clock today, there is a pregame fan rally outside Seattle's Climate Pledge Arena. So you can go cheer for Sophie and celebrate women's sports. And I figure if I end the show on time and I get out of here on time, I don't have too much to do, I'll run on over there and check it out. But now apparently all the lefty psychos are all mad about this, including some people in the media. They're trying to claim that this is some kind of anti-trans event that is happening out there so that way they can rile up all the gray hair and green-haired activists, send them on down there, and hoping that maybe they'll take a pot shot at somebody. And that's really what it is. When you have these lunatics in the media who are trying to, there's an anti-trans rally happening down at Seattle. No. It's a pro-women's sports rally. So you have the comeback. I don't know who the comeback is. Apparently there's some sports account. They said WNBA facing calls from fans to stop anti-trans rally after Sophie Cunningham's recent comments. It's not an anti-trans rally. The flyer says promote and celebrate women's sports. It doesn't even mention the trans. It doesn't mention that at all. In fact, I thought I was going to be supportive, so I went and looked at the ticket prices, Kevin. I went and looked, and I'm thinking, is it like a can of Pepsi? You go redeem that at the entrance, and you can go see the WNBA? Is it like they're giving them out on the corner before the game? No.
Yeah, I looked on the Game Time app, which is the secondary market app.
Yeah.
No, you're not wrong.
Yeah. For a minimum, the last time I checked on StubHub, I was looking at $50. That's number one. That was in the, if I'm going to a game, I'm going to a game. I'm going to enjoy the game. I want to get sweated on. I want to be as close as I can. Okay, maybe I don't want to get sweated on, but I want to be as close as I can to this, right? To the WNBA. All right. Anyway, so I look at the tickets. For anything normal or reasonable in that stadium, Kevin, excess of $300. And I'm like, I support women's sports. I'm going to the rally outside. Somebody's got an extra ticket for me. I got plans with my son tonight. But I'm going to the rally outside, but $300 for a game. This is great. I really think it's great. I really think it's great that the tickets are $300. You know why? Because that shows that the woke mafia is losing. That shows that somebody like Sophie Cunningham is shutting this down.
The cheapest ticket I can find is $86.
$86. So those $50 tickets, that's a dream now. That's not even there anymore. Probably because of the rally, because so many people going to support the Indiana Fever. I don't think they're going to celebrate the Storm these days. No more Sue Bird. Lots more to discuss as the show continues, my friends. Up next, your chance to take the trip or keep the cash. Plus, on top of that, our very own Representative Susan Del Bene is welcoming the Democratic Socialists of America into the Democrats' big tent. I kid you not, this is becoming more and more normal, where they say, oh, You're a socialist. Well, let's invite you in. Why is Del Bene doing that? Well, Del Bene is one of the top fundraisers of the Democrat Party. And she knows that if she alienates these guys, she's going to have a big, big problem. So, my friends, when we come back, we will give you all the details on that, your chance to take the trip or keep the cash, plus give you more details on the efforts to repeal the income tax and what Ferguson and Nick Brown are doing to try and stop them. It's really shady stuff. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. Coming up this hour, Fergie decides it's a good idea to keep a racist human rights commissioner. You can't make this up. A candidate warns about the dangers of socialism, and Portland Antifa activists convicted of assaulting a police officer with a wooden stake. What, were we vampire hunting down there? But before we get to any of that, my friends, it is your chance to take the trip or keep the cash. That's right, my friends. This week, you have the chance to win a trip to the Grand Canyon or take $3,000 in cold hard cash. All you have to do is text the word I give you to the number I give you. Do not text your name. Do not text your address. Do not text your phone number. Do not text in, Ari, it looks like you've lost some weight, along with losing some hair. Do not text that in. Just text the word I give you to the number I give you for your chance to win. Today's word is trail. As in, if you hike the Grand Canyon, you will walk on a trail. That's Trail. Text the word trail to 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Thank you to our in-house Pink Floyd cover band for showing up for us to have the contest today. In fact, when I hear about that, I think of Dark Side of the Moon. And there's a yellow brick road in Dark Side of the Moon. And you might even argue that's a type of trail for them to follow in the movie. I did that weird thing one time where you put the music to the movie. And I got to say, neither the music nor the movie were good in that situation. Maybe it's because I wasn't high, because that's what everybody else was doing. And I felt like such a square.
You're not a fan of the Wizard of Oz. I couldn't think of it for a second. I wanted to say Dark Side of the Moon, but the movie Wizard of Oz, you don't even like that.
Well, I'm not the biggest fan of the Wizard of Oz. I'm not. But they turned off the volume of the movie so you can listen to the music. I don't know if there's a way you can hear the audio from the movie while doing the music or something.
The whole point of it is to see that the music matches up to the movie.
Oh, no, I get that, but I can't hear Dorothy over it or whatever else.
That's the point of this version.
I understand that, but can somebody give me one where I can still hear what's going on over there?
Turn the closed captioning on. And don't you know what they're saying anyways? It's not a really difficult story to follow.
That is true. I'm not the biggest Wizard of Oz fan. I'm just not. I got a friend who gets mad at me every time I say that because she's a huge fan of the Wizard of Oz, and I am really, really not.
People are going crazy over that stuff down at that Sphere going in Las Vegas. They've redone the Wizard of Oz specifically for the Sphere in Vegas.
Are they playing Dark Side of the Moon with it?
I don't believe so.
Because that could make it a little bit more fun. We can do that too. I saw that witch's hat, the last museum I went to in the Smithsonian, and those ruby slippers, they're all sitting over there. But not my jam. I want to see R2-D2 and C-3PO. That were in another display case. They were there too. Unfortunately, no Bruce Willis tank top from Die Hard and no Rocky shorts. I was very, 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 very disappointed. But you know who's not disappointed? Zoran Mamdani. Why is he not disappointed? Because he is so excited to take everybody's money that he did one of the most disgusting things I've ever seen in politics. He decided he was going to put up a list of all the addresses and names, this entire database through New York City, of who's going to have to pay his new pied-à-terre tax, pied-à-terre tax, which basically means they're taxing the fact that you have a second home over a certain amount of value. They're going to tax that and take the money from it. And they were so eager that you can go search for these people. You can go find these people. You can go protest at their apartments. You can go target them. In typical Mamdani fashion, he didn't care who he put on this list, and he exposed useful idiots. Because some people who voted for Mamdani are on this list. Like, for example, Cynthia Nixon. And you go, who's Cynthia Nixon? Yes, that's a name I haven't heard in a long time. Cynthia Nixon is the redhead from Sex and the City. She supports Mamdani. She supports all this insanity. And he just doxed her address. Because eventually, the jihadi commies turn on the people that put them into power. And if you don't realize that by now, maybe having your address given out to the general public will convince you of that. Because it's not about the tax. He doesn't want the tax. He wants his crazy minions to go target the uber wealthy people. He wants them to target them so much they decide to move out. He actually wants to destroy all this. He doesn't want the income. He wants to destroy New York City. Here's something else. Because government is incompetent and Zoran Mamdani is government, a lot of people on this list, it's not their second home. One woman writes, I've lived in that house for 56 years and slept there 365 days a year, and the value's not even correct. This is entirely to go target other people. This is when they say eat the rich. That's what they want you to do here. According to the Post-Millennial, socialist New York City Mayor Zoran Mamdani has published all the names of those who could be getting hit with his new pied-à-terre. I gotta work on my French. I have failed French for 3 years in high school. It has not gotten better in the years since I stopped using it. Pied-à-terre.
Do you, though? Do you really need to work on it,
I
though?
really don't. I need to work on this one word. Je ne comprends pas. That's all I remember, which means I don't remember, okay? That I don't understand. See? Look at that. The pied-à-terre tax, or second home, along with their addresses in a searchable database, effectively doxing the names and addresses of wealthy New Yorkers on a long list. The comprehensive list was uploaded by the Department of Finance and claimed to cover unoccupied, non-primary residences in the 5 boroughs of New York City that are over $1 million. The names and addresses of each property owner were included in the list. The Department of Finance said the role includes but is not limited to those properties that may be subject to the surcharge. An update to the website includes a form for those listed to contest the tax because they want your information. The move from the Mamdani administration to effectively dox the wealthy New Yorkers followed a post from the mayor who had warned wealthy homeowners they would pay their fair share of taxes. What exactly is the fair share? Whenever you ask a Democrat that, they can't actually answer it. What is the fair share? You know what this reminds me of? Was it The Stranger? I think it was The Stranger. They decided when Trump was running the first time to dox anybody in the Seattle area who donated money to Trump. So they pulled the finance records, which is technically, I guess, public information, and put it up online. And I will never forget this. One person I knew, they were really, really mad because their father was on the list. Their father was an old man with an oxygen tank, who gave Donald Trump a whopping $25. Gave him $25 because he liked the Donald. But basically what you're doing is you're inviting the lunatics to go target that house. You're going to target the guy who lives in the big, tall office building with security at the front desk? You going to do that? Or are you going to go after, well, what's easy and what's in South Seattle? Where there's this house right here, and that dude is probably 80 years old, so let's go target him for supporting Donald Trump. It's no different. Mamdani, this is like right out of The Dark Knight Rises. I give the city to you, the people, right? That's what this is. That's really what it is. Yes, let's go put them on trial. Is it death or exile? Dr. Crane, death or exile? I'm not going out on that ice. I'm not going out on that ice, Crane. I'm not doing it. That's what Mamdani wants next. It's not winter yet. He has to stall a little bit longer. He has to wait till the river freezes over, but doesn't really freeze over so people can still fall through it. But then Commissioner Gordon, he's going to go out on the ice. Jessica Tisch, she's going to go out on the ice. And all of a sudden, there's going to be this shadowy caped figure in front of them who's going to say, my name is Red Ranger, and I'm here to stand up for the people of Seattle. Oh, wait. Hang on. I'm confusing a few things here. It's not the Red Ranger, right?
Red
and
Ranger,
his friend Crow.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I didn't see any pictures of this character, but
yes.
He doesn't have a cape, right?
No, he is an armored feller.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a cape.
You know, I'll give him that much, right? I mean,
no capes.
Cape's not going to help you in any situation. Let's just be honest.
You just look cool there, man.
Unless you're the greatest American hero, which then it'll give you like powers.
Believe
right?
it or not, I'm walking on it.
But I mean, you know, like Batman, that cape would just be a nightmare. The cowl and the cape, he wouldn't be able to deal with any of that.
You run an electric current through that cape, and then you can fly. Or hang glide, or whatever it is that he's doing. Whatever it is that he does, you can do. So, Mamdani. Author Alex Berenson said his elderly mother, who has lived in the same townhome for 30 years, which is her only residence, was listed. The move from Mamdani was the result of the socialists pressuring Kathy Hochul into greenlighting more taxes on the wealthy, with the threat he would be forced to raise property taxes on everyday New Yorkers if the governor did not increase income tax on the richest people and corporations. Hey, how about you just cut the spending? How about you don't spend $30 million on a grocery store? How about you don't spend millions of dollars on 5 grocery stores? By the way, the $30 million one, I was trying to figure out why it cost so much. You want to know why it cost so much? I couldn't figure this out. It was because they're building the whole building. They're not like going and renting somewhere or buying somewhere. They're building the whole building. So you know what my question is with these insane grocery stores Mom Donnie wants to run? Why don't you just give the money that you want to spend to the agencies that already give out food to the needy people? I know it's mind-boggling. But the reason he won't do that is because he wants to destroy local businesses. If you put a grocery store that's going to be 30% less than its competition, there are neighborhood grocers, there are bodegas, there are chain grocery stores nearby that work on a 1% profit margin. That's it. 1% profit margin or less. So now you're going to undercut them. Now they're going to close. Now you're not going to have them in the area, and everybody is reliant on your government grocery store. How long until we can have the lines again and they don't have the stock in town? Can we bring a little bit of the USSR over here? I really missed all that. I missed all the jokes about the bread lines. We can bring them back, right? That's exactly what's going to happen. You put one of these things in a neighborhood, all the stores, who wouldn't want to pay less money? And now it's funded by the government. And these things are projected to lose millions of dollars a year. They're doing this on a loss so they can kill local businesses. So that way, what do they have? They have their grocery store. They're basically taking out their competition by undercutting their competition with taxpayer money. That's what they're doing. This is entirely by design. This is their entire plan. Do you not remember that Zoran Mamdani literally put out a video bragging about how he wanted to tax everybody in New York City, bragging about it on tax day? That's what this guy does. Now, you want to know that this isn't a bug, that this is an actual feature? DSA co-chair Megan Romer, a useful idiot, was being interviewed by Fox News about their crazy platform. Listen to this because she confirmed everything. They're so arrogant. They'll say it out loud.
So we're going to put up on the screen a few of the things that are part of your platform, and I want to ask you, just give me sort of a true or false on these. Abolish the Senate.
True.
Okay. Replace the presidency and Supreme Court as we now know them.
Yep.
Abolish ICE.
Absolutely.
Abolish borders and give amnesty to anyone currently in the U.S. illegally.
As a long-term plan, yep.
Defund the Pentagon.
Absolutely.
Abolish prisons, at least in large part.
Yeah, again, that as part of a long-term program, yeah.
Okay, so no prisons. Government or public ownership of most large corporations.
Yeah, absolutely.
That destroys the economy. That destroys your borders. That destroys your national defense. That destroys your government. That destroys everything. That's what they want. That's literally what they want. You can't even call me crazy. She just admitted it. That's one of the chairs of the DSA. They ran their entire platform. You know, while she's talking, they're running their platform on the other side of the screen. And she's agreeing to their own website. This is what they want. They want the Dr. Crane up in the corporate tower putting the Wayne executives on trial. Death or exile, Lucius Fox. Death or exile, Commissioner Gordon. Death or exile, random lady who's pretending to be a good guy but who's really a bad guy so she can get revenge on the Wayne family and Gotham and everybody else. This is literally out of a movie. It's out of a movie what's happening here. And useful idiots like our very own DCC chair, Representative Susan Del Bene, is going along with it.
So, Congresswoman, should you call out the Democratic Socialists and police your kind of ranks and repudiate the platform of the Democratic Socialists of America?
First of all, I think you're talking about some races in bright blue districts in a few parts of the country. The folks in Iowa who want representatives to stand up for them aren't interested in who is running for election in New York City. They're focused on who's going to stand up to represent
But what about
them.
Democratic leaders? Should
And
you guys repudiate it?
The path to the majority is through these swing districts across the country.
So she's welcoming them into the big tent. She is welcoming them in and saying, we want you in our big tent. Basically, it's their own demise. Because if these socialists win, they want to get rid of Hakeem Jeffries and they want to get rid of Chuck Schumer. They even want to get rid of AOC because she's not radical enough for them. This is what they actually want. Man, Democrat Party has changed a lot. A lot. How do I know? This is JFK's address to the American Newspaper Publishers Association in 1961. Tell me if this sounds like a Democrat or a Republican.
Communism is so often described as an ideology or a belief that exists somewhere other than in the United States. Let me ask you, sir, just how serious a threat to our national security are these communist subversive activities in the United States today?
Well, I think they're serious. I think it's a matter that we should continue to give great care and attention to. We should support the laws which the United States has passed in order to protect us from those who would destroy us from within. We should sustain the Department of Justice in its efforts and the FBI, and we should be continually alert. I think if the United States is maintaining a strong society here in the United States, I think that we can meet any internal threat. The major threat is external and will continue.
For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed. It conducts the Cold War, in short, with a wartime discipline no democracy would ever hope or wish to match. Nevertheless, every democracy recognizes the necessary restraints of national security. And the question remains whether those restraints need to be more strictly observed if we are to oppose this kind of attack as well as outright invasion.
You know, that's who all Democrats cite all the time. They always cite JFK. Wonder why they don't cite that speech anymore. Democrats today are not Democrats. Democrats used to care about law and order. They used to care about national security. They used to care about stopping communism. Now they're the ones supporting it. They are literally the ones supporting it, like you just heard from Susan Del Bene. I was on Newsmax earlier today. I didn't bring the clip for you, but I was on Newsmax earlier today, and they had a Democratic strategist. This guy clearly a little wet behind the ears, and shall we just say he goes off the talking points. So it's really easy for me to destroy people who go off the talking points because I get the talking points every single morning in my inbox, and I know exactly what they're going to say. This guy was defending Mamdani. This guy was defending all the insanity that the DSA co-chair is supporting. And I said to him, you are not a Democratic strategist. You are literally advocating for a communist jihadi that isn't a Democrat. And then they went to commercial. I was doing so well. I was waiting for his response. I was just waiting for it. So bummed out. Then they went to commercial. Speaking of commercials, by the way, when we come back, my friends, Bob Ferguson. Oh, Bob Ferguson, what has he done now? Fergie is keeping a racist human rights commissioner. This is from the oh-so-tolerant Democrat Party. We'll tell you about who he renewed up next. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KBI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, if you haven't got my voter's guide yet, text the word VOTE, V-O-T-E, to 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We will send it over to you. Somebody said, Ari, who do you choose for the King County Assessor? I said, Jimothy. Let's pick Jimothy. I know there's 4 options there. I think Jimothy would do a better job than any of them. Unfortunately, there's far too many times I would write Jimothy on my ballot. I used to write my dead grandfather, but, Jimothy's still with us. He seems sprightly, even given his condition. So let's give it to Jimothy, shall we? Did you see this ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous, this video that Jamie Peterson made? Jamie Peterson, he's the Senate Majority Leader who's running for re-election. He's a tough re-election because he's got a crazy socialist. So the guy who has passed every anti-parent, every insane trans bill, the income tax, the driving force behind it, apparently he's not progressive enough for the left. So he's got a very serious lefty challenger. He posts a video in front of a ballot box. Wait, you're campaigning in front of a election site? Pretty sure that's illegal, dude. And then he does this thing where he hunches over and says, run, run, run like Jimothy to the ballot box. And I mean, that's the image you see when he's coming for your children. It's creepy. This is a guy who's there in shorts that no white man should be wearing ever, and the socks that don't really go with it. It's a bad look. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah, it's a creepy, creepy video. This is who the Democrat Party is, though. This is who they are. There are some other members of the Democrat Party. So let's remember that the Democrats just had this big dust-up over their Human Rights Commission. Why Washington has a Human Rights Commission, I have no idea. I don't know why are there human rights violations going on in Washington that I'm unaware of? Anybody? Nobody? You get $13 million a year for the Human Rights Commission. Why are we funding this stupidity? Are there slave mines? Hey, I got something for the Human Rights Commission. Let's deal with the human trafficking from the illegal alien gangs. Oh, no, you don't want to do. How about the drug trafficking from the gangs? Oh, no, you don't want to do. Oh, well, then what's the point of your stupid Human Rights Commission? Well, do you remember the members of the Human Rights Commission? Because I do. I have to remember these people. There's one named Han Tran. Do you remember that name?
Now, that's a name I've not heard in a long time. A long time.
Okay. Han Tran is a school board member of the North Shore School Board. She's also one of Washington State's human rights commissioners. She was appointed by Governor Jay Inslee, and her term was up earlier this month. Now, the question was she going to get renewed? Because she's a racist. She's a radical anti-Semite terrorist supporter, and they just booted another one off the commission. So were they going to renew her? We sent requests for comment and requests for comment and requests for comment. And then magically today, there she is in a video talking about human rights stuff. So I guess she's still around. Uh-huh. According to intrepid news reporter Jessica Russack-Hoffman over at the Jewish News Syndicate, Tran's listed term ran from June 2022 through June 2026. However, she participated in the commission's July 23rd meeting, according to a video uploaded by the state agency, indicating that she has either been reappointed or is continuing to serve beyond her original term. The fact that they're not getting back to requests for comment lead me to believe it's the former, not the latter. Tran also serves on the North Shore School District Board of Directors, which recently voted to remove police officers from district schools. She's a rock star, this one. Her apparent continuation on the commission is drawing renewed scrutiny because of her lengthy record of anti-Israel activism and controversial statements involving Jews, Zionism, and the Holocaust. Now, we had a listener send us documents they got through a public disclosure request. They have been verified. While serving on the commission, Tran wrote, "It feels strange to speak about the Jewish Holocaust while Palestinians are being starved by Israel, bombed, and denied the right to return home." Okay. Aside from the let's discuss what's happening here, lady, you're comparing those two things. There is no mass extermination. There is no genocide, no matter how much you want to say there is. Even the UN says they're not. She added, "If the sins of the past were not left unresolved, we would not carry the debt owed to evil today." She also drapes herself in a keffiyeh. Tran also accuses supporters of Israel of weaponizing anti-Semitism. She says anti-Semitism was being instrumentalized to justify the slaughter of Palestinians. Hurt people can hurt people. Are you saying it's legit for the Palestinians to go kill the Jews? Are you saying that October 7th was justified? Is that what you're saying? She further claims Zionists were conflating Israel's Zionism, Jews, and Judaism as a shield to justify the ongoing displacement of Palestinians and military actions in Lebanon, Syria, and Yemen. You know, I got a thing here. Should I ever weigh in on Asian culture? Ever? I like Chinese food. That's about all I know about Asian culture. That's really it. I know about China as a geopolitical enemy on the world stage. I don't know anything about Asian culture. Should I weigh in on that? No. Yet, here she is saying she knows about the stuff in Jewish land. Okay, lady, when's the last time you were in synagogue? Please. Oh, wait, I remember. You're in the Langston Hughes Community Center, which actually used to be a synagogue protesting for Gaza, for terrorist organizations, right? She defended the slogan, "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free," writing that it requires context. Ah, yes, you and Harvard president. while also claiming that in practice, achieving a Jewish majority state required apartheid and occupation. Funny. That's not how it happened. Second of all, you know what else is funny about that? How do you think the Muslims got all their countries? They actually occupied the entire peninsula and kept moving. How do you think they're getting the UK right now? Following October 7th massacre, Tran publicly supported 26 employees at Seattle's Wing Luke Museum who walked off the job because they didn't like that there was an exhibit on anti-Semitism. In fact, they didn't like that this exhibit was addressing discrimination against Jewish, Black, and Asian communities. Wait a second. You're Asian. Shouldn't you like that exhibit? Nope, get rid of it because the Jews are involved. Tran later appeared on a Beyond Ceasefire panel with anti-Israel activist Linda Sarsour, CARE Washington Executive Director Imran Siddiqui, State Senator Yasmin Trudeau, and Bothell Deputy Mayor Rami Al-Kabra. Wow, our very own Hamas caucus. Woohoo! Excellent. Excellent. This is who she's hanging out with. This is who Ferguson just reappointed. This is who they did. After they just had an issue with Luke Jasmine, who is another commissioner who went on a rant about why do we even care about anti-Semitism? We shouldn't deal with anti-Semitism. Them Jews are complaining all the time. And he got fired. Oh, I'm sorry. He was forced to resign because of it. So Fergie just renewed this person. So next time he talks about, how we need to be tolerant of other people's cultures and how he wants to be open-minded and blah, 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 completely full of it. Because it looks like you renewed one of the most racist members. Let's not forget, Luke Jasmine said this group sits around. He told JNS, this group sits around and bashes minorities all the time. That's the Human Rights Commission. That's what Bob Ferguson is spending $13 million a year of your taxpayer dollars on. It's insane. Speaking of your taxpayer dollars, do you want to spend the money on a congressional representative who likes America or hates America? Up next, my friends, one of the challengers is going to tell us why socialism is such a danger and why it's such a factor in her race. Give you all details up next. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Well, my friends, a lot of you have reached out and said, Ari, who are your picks over on the ballot? A lot of you are very, very interested over in our congressional candidates. Joining us now to discuss is one of them on the KVI studio line. Trin Ha, thank you so much for being with us today.
Hi, Ari. It's a pleasure to be with you.
So good to have you today. So why don't you start by telling us why you're running for office?
I am running to stop socialism from gaining more ground in American politics and to bring politics back to the basics. So strong schools, safe streets, secure borders, and a government that's accountable to the people it serves.
So that's all great stuff. I agree with all of it. But how are you going to do that from the federal perspective when a lot of the stuff you're talking about is local stuff?
Well, a lot of it starts from understanding what socialism is all about. You know, when socialism or communism is mentioned, we think about its economic and political dimensions, the state ownership of the means of production, the centralization of power. But we often overlook the psychological and moral effects of socialism. So, which to me, I think is much more insidious and much more dangerous.
Gotcha.
Socialism doesn't just change the way who owns the economy. It's at its most authoritarian. I think it's about changing how people think, act, and treat one another.
You seem very, very passionate about this. Is there a reason you're so passionate about this one issue? You have some particular life experience with it, perhaps?
Yes, my family survived socialism. I see myself as standing between two generations, really. My father, who was imprisoned by the communists in hard labor camps for 7 years. He was kept deep in the jungles with no trial, no sentence, and no certainty about when or whether he would ever return home. And on the other side is I have a son who was born into a freedom that is so natural and complete that he can never imagine what it's like to live without it. He would never know what it's like to have to choose between betraying fellow prisoners and facing months of punishment in a dark cell. My dad had to live through that. He would never know what it's like to hear that sharp knock on the door and be taken away in the dead of night. My dad had to live through that. And he would never know what it means to watch his children cry from hunger and have nothing to offer them. And my dad had to live through that. So I see myself standing between these two generations as mother and daughter and having a responsibility to make sure that my son, the people of his generation, and those who come up after him will never have to live a day of what my dad lived through.
So those are very noble goals. And I hope that more people get to hear that. But the problem we have right now is the Democrats in this country, and we live in a state which is 60-40 Democrats, are overwhelmingly actually going, socialism, it's a great idea, it's a fantastic idea. So how do you plan on bridging that gap, especially with an incumbent who's out raising you in money?
Well, money doesn't always decide elections, does it? I think one of it is to get to the bottom of what we're seeing on the streets right now. And you've been covering Seattle. We see criminals on the streets, open-air drug markets, human trafficking, all the lawlessness, and then the tragedy that happened by Seattle. That's not simply a failure of policy, of policing. It's the product of fundamentally different philosophy of law that's being realized in Seattle, but also at a state level. It really reminds me, looking at Seattle, of what socialist theory of law looks like. It's seeing law as a product of capitalism, as a form of oppression, that it exists to regulate exchanges between property owners. You know, legal theorists from the Soviet era argue that since capitalism exploits workers, the legal system that it protects it also allows exploitation to continue. So courts don't stand above capitalism, that they preserve it. Police do not simply protect public order, they protect capitalist property relations, and that rights are not neutral, that they're class rights. So what we're seeing right now is really a version of socialist law being, a socialist approach to law coming to fruition. Seattle is obviously not the Soviet Union. I'm not making that point. What I'm saying is we're seeing a similar way of thinking about the law. Instead of treating the law as something that applies equally to everyone, it's increasingly treated as a tool to achieve social and political ends. So crime is often explained away as the result of poverty, of inequality, of systematic problems rather than personal choices. And criminals are viewed more so as victims rather than people responsible for their own actions. And, you know, as a result, we're enforcing the law that is we're not enforcing the laws, and that enforcement is sometimes seen as harmful. And the consequences of that is what we're seeing today in Seattle. Law exists on paper, but they're not consistently enforced. And that's not just in Seattle alone, but across our state.
Gotcha. Now, in the last few minutes we have with Trin Ha, who's running for Congress, is this the kind of stuff that you're talking about when you go knocking on doors? Is this the kind of stuff people are talking about? Or are they talking about other things and you're trying to educate them on this?
I think all of this touches on all the other issues that we're worried about: affordability, public safety, school choice, what children are being taught in school, that they're being indoctrinated. It really comes back to who we elect as leaders for at the state level, at the local level, and especially at the federal level. People are concerned that there is a growing rise, there is a great resurgence of socialism, and where that is going to take our country. And I believe that we must resist the socialism in America, not simply to protect the free markets, but to preserve the character, the responsibility, the moral independence that makes a free people and a free republic possible. I think at the bottom of this is about retaining American freedom and making sure that we put American interests first.
Trin Ha, if people want to volunteer for you, if they want to donate to you, if they want to learn more about your campaign, what's the best way for them to do so?
The best way is to get in touch with us through our website, trinhaforcongress.com, all spelled out. And we appreciate it. People visit our Facebook, our Instagram, and our social media to get the latest updates.
Trin Ha, best of luck to you. We'll be watching that race very, very closely. We appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you very much, Ari.
Always a pleasure. We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. I may regret these words, but have you noticed that a lot of the Antifa crazies aren't out as much as they used to be? Maybe it's because now they're facing federal big boy time. Just a hunch. I say this as I'm going, hopefully, to a protest, or excuse me, a rally tonight outside of Climate Pledge Arena to support women's sports and to support Sophie Cunningham. And who knows who's going to show up, because the lefties are trying their absolute best to make sure the Looney Tunes show up. So, a Portland Antifa member, according to the Post Millennial, has been convicted of felony assault against a federal officer. Giovanni Joseph Brumbello, 21, of Gresham, pleaded guilty on Monday to striking a Border Patrol agent in the head with a wooden stake. Dude's seen too much Buffy. And also, dude, you go for the chest. You go for the heart. Have you never seen a vampire movie? It's like when Donald Sutherland is training Christy Swanson in the movie, not the TV show. And there's a montage because, you know, even Rocky had a montage. And he's training her, and she goes and stabs him in like the neck. And he goes and he moves the hand to the chest to remind her to go for the heart. Did you not get your training? I'm not saying that, you know, border agents are vampires, but I'm just saying a wooden stake? Are you insane? This is how violent these people are. This is outside the Portland, Oregon ICE facility where we know all the warm and fuzzy terrorists hang out at. Brumbello faces up to 20 years in prison, a $250,000 fine, 3 years of supervised release. He'll be sentenced at the Mark O. Hatfield Federal Courthouse on October 19th. Was it worth it? Was it worth it? So I'm looking at this stick of a man who looks like an alien from another planet with all the stuff they were wearing, comes up behind the guy, literally goes at his neck with a wooden stake. And these aren't the things you're thinking you take camping with you or like a wedge or something. This looks like a big sucker. If I didn't know better, I thought that was a metal stake they used for army tents. The incident occurred around 8 p.m. on June 14th, 2025. Oh, remember when they said they were just peaceful protests at the Portland ICE facility last year? During an anti-ICE Antifa direct action planned on No King's Day. Oh, we're just protesting Donald Trump, right? Totally peaceful. Stabbing, but mostly peaceful. Vampire hunting, but mostly peaceful. Video evidence shows that Brumbello rushed in to interfere with the arrest of a fellow rider and used a pointed wooden stake. That's lowballing it, guys. That's downplaying it. To strike the back of the head of a federal agent. He only got the back of his head because there's a helmet and he missed his neck. With the Border Patrol Tactical Unit, otherwise known as BORTAC. Brumbello was dressed in all black and equipped with riot gear at the time of the attack. According to the Department of Justice, a BORTAC agent was assisting with the arrest of a rioter when he felt a sharp pain in the back of his head. The agent released the individual he was arresting, turned to observe a male rioter. By the way, I don't know this person's male. I'm looking at them and I'm confused. Later identified to be Brumbello, directed a pointed wooden stake at him. There's video of this, by the way. As part of the plea agreement, Brumbello has agreed to pay restitution in full to the victim. The June 14, 2025 riot was one of the most violent demonstrations that occurred during the 6-month siege at the ICE facility, resulting in several criminal convictions. Robert Jacob Hoops, 25, of Portland. Hoops. Wasn't that the name of John Cusack's character in One Crazy Summer? Hoops! Yep, that's what it was. I can't believe I remember these things. The random thing. I'm like, nobody has the last name Hoops. Oh, and he plays basketball and his last name is Hoops. It's not a nickname. Spare me. Give me a break. Well, I guess people actually have the last name Hoops. So Robert Jacob Hoops, 25, of Portland, was not a dolphin with rabies. He was sentenced to 2.5 years in prison in June after pleading guilty to throwing a large rock at an ICE agent's head. He breached the federal building in concert with black-clad anarchists, leaving the officer bloodied and injured. The U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of Oregon has charged more than 30 defendants for crimes committed at the Portland ICE facility since June 2025. This includes offenses such as arson, aggravated assault on federal officers, and property damage. Brumbello will likely be the third defendant to receive jail time. Prosecutions remain ongoing. You know what I love? There's a whole bunch of these people that haven't gotten prison time yet, but they all thought they could get away with it. They all thought Trump wouldn't do anything. I wish that the Trump administration had done this during the summer of love. Maybe it wouldn't have gone on so long in 2020. This person is being sentenced at the courthouse, which Antifa attacked for over 120 consecutive nights in 2020. That's the same courthouse this person is now going to be sentenced in, and I am here for it. I am here for it. Not just him, by the way. Now I got a question for everybody. With the illegal aliens, do you think they should be deported? Do you think they should serve their time here? Do you think we should keep them here serving time? Because who knows who the president's going to be next? So, what do you think we should do with the illegal aliens who are guilty of violent crimes? Send them back? Keep them here, incarcerated? Give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Because an illegal alien and associate of the vicious Tren de Aragua gang has been convicted of vehicular ramming attack against Border Patrol agents in Portland, Oregon. Luis Nino Moncada, 33, of Venezuela, obviously my Spanish is as bad as my French, forcefully rammed his pickup truck into a federal vehicle several times to evade arrest as he was surrounded by officers, prompting an agent to fire his service weapon. Nino Moncada pleaded guilty on Monday to felony depredation of government property. He faces a maximum sentence of 10 years in a federal prison, a $250,000 fine, and 1 year of supervised release, according to the U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of Oregon. The incident sparked riots outside the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement facility in Portland's southwest waterfront after city officials falsely claimed federal agents had shot innocent individuals who they described as their neighbors. Sound familiar, my friends? Yes, same thing, same place. On January 8th, 2026, Nino Moncada parked his red Toyota Tacoma pickup truck in the parking lot of Adventist Health Portland. Hang on, he's an illegal alien. Did he have a legal driver's license? Did Oregon give it to him? Did Washington give it to him? Did any other blue state give it to him? He had a female passenger, identified as a name there's no way I'm going to pronounce, so we're going to skip that. A 32-year-old Venezuelan illegal alien involved with Tren de Aragua prostitution ring. Oh, this guy sounds like an all-around good guy. Human trafficking, assault, attempted vehicular manslaughter, lots of fun. After Nino Moncada parked, a Border Patrol agent parked his federal vehicle behind him. 6 Border Patrol agents exited their vehicles and surrounded his truck in an effort to arrest him and the woman because of their unlawful status in the United States. By the way, that might save this woman. Who knows if she's being willingly or unwillingly trafficked? Nino Moncada proceeded to weaponize his vehicle, believing that he was being targeted by ICE agents, and began forcefully ramming his pickup truck into the government vehicle parked behind him. A federal officer fired his service weapon at Nino Moncada during the attack, resulting in both occupants sustaining gunshot wounds. But if you listen to the Antifa types in Portland, they shot our neighbors. No, you shot a pimp and a prostitute who are attempting to kill federal agents with a vehicle. Illegal alien gang associates fled the scene, were later apprehended. Both of them survived their injuries. Nino Moncada admitted during Monday's court hearing that he was illegally residing in the U.S. A federal immigration judge ordered his removal in November of 2024. He has been held in custody at the Northwest ICE Processing Center in Tacoma, Washington, since his arrest. This is the one that Pramila Jayapal really wants to get inside. I showed up to the processing center and they wouldn't let me in. Oh, enough. This is who you're advocating for, a human trafficker. Remind her of that when she says believe all women. Just believe that. The Department of Homeland Security said that the woman is associated with Tren de Aragua prostitution ring, was involved in a prior shooting in Portland. Online records show she has been listed as a prostitute on several websites. Let's not forget, Tren de Aragua is a designated foreign terrorist organization from Venezuela, according to the U.S. government. According to an FBI affidavit, Zambrano Contreras was detained, along with Nino Moncada, during an August 2025 prostitution sting in Portland. During a police interview, she reportedly admitted to being involved in a shooting in Portland and listed several key players the pair had been working with, identifying them as Tren de Aragua members. This is who Pramila Jayapal and all the Democrats are continuing to say, we really need to release them. They're really good guys. They're our neighbors. Yeah, I'm sure we all want more prostitution in our neighborhoods. Just ask the people up on Aurora. I'm sure they're loving it right now, just like McDonald's. Lots more to discuss as the show continues, my friends. Final hour free-for-all. Your calls, your texts, your thoughts, your stories, plus the latest on the shooting at the Seattle Center. Give you all the details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show's final hour free for all. Your calls, your texts, your thoughts, your stories, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. Coming up this hour, why the Seattle Times doesn't deserve your business anymore. Was it a scandal or something nefarious that led to a big mistake in one of our voters' guides? And John Carlson will be swinging by to talk about our elected officials' incompetence here in Seattle. And speaking of our amazing elected officials here in Seattle, you can't call them city leaders. There's no leadership here. Absolutely zero leadership. What usually happens, let's take somebody who's good at this. Who's good at press conferences? Let's take Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis is great at press conferences. Why? He gets up there and he's the MC. And he says, "Hi, I'm Ron DeSantis. We had an emergency. We had a tornado. We had a hurricane. We had a whatever. Here's the guy from FEMA. Here's the guy from our emergency. Oh, you guys are done? Okay. Now I want to bring up this dude who's going to tell you about the emergency. Now I want to tell you about this dude. Here's what we're doing with the highways. Here's what we're doing with the roads. Here's what we're doing this." Let the people who are the experts talk. The problem is you've got Katie Wilson, who's a moron, and she's relying on a moron. So you have no experts. And today it's even worse. Why? They tried again for a press conference. Stop talking. Just do press releases. You are so incompetent. Today, it's just Barnes and it's just Wilson because nobody wants to be on stage with them anymore. Beforehand, it was everybody wanted to be in front of the camera. So they delayed a presser. So that way, Ferguson and Jayapal and Wilson and everybody could be there except for Barnes because he was at his home in Chicago because he doesn't actually live here. So everybody wanted to be there. But then when they saw what they were dealing with, Ferguson's like, he didn't even talk at yesterday's press conference. He spoke at Sundays, didn't even talk at yesterday's, wasn't even there today. Big shooting. And they announced today that another suspect might be on the loose. What does he look like, guys? Oh, we can't tell you. That means he's black. That means, I'm sorry, that's the case. If it was a white guy, it would be like, here's what he's wearing, here's what he looks like, he's a supporter of Donald Trump. But that's how you know it's a person of color. That's how you know. I'm sorry. We know the deal by now. And who are most of the gang members here in Seattle? There's a problem in the black community with gang violence, and it's not being dealt with. So what happens? Hannah Kim from Fox 13 is at the press conference today where we find out there might be two suspects on the loose. We don't know what either one of them look like, but if you see them, call the authorities. Hey, there's a young man walking down the street. Oh, wait, they can't say gang violence either. You know there's a new word for gang violence? Small groups. Might be small groups of people. Hey, Kevin, Jeff, we're a small group of people right here. So they might be looking for us. We might be a gang. We need to learn some dance moves. When you're a jet all the way from your first day. Oh, wait, that's not that kind of gang. That's not what we're talking about, right? Not that? We're not doing that? Okay.
Well, I had a friend talking about Bloods and Crips, and I was like, I don't think that's the type gang.
My fingers do not cross that. I have to, actually put them that way. I mean, I could do the Vulcan thing, right? I could do that, no problem. I could do it with the other one. Boom, look at that. Bam, 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 bam. I could make them like Pac-Man. I could do that. But I cannot do that West Coast, East Coast. The people who are watching on the live stream right now on Facebook, YouTube, X, and where Rumble, wherever else we are, they're enjoying this right now. Like, What is Ari doing?
You're literally helping your other hand with the other hand try to cross over your fingers to make a W. Is that what we're trying?
I can't do the W. I can't do it. Just West Coast. Look at that. I look like a weird Ninja Turtle or something with that. It just don't work. That's because I'm white, and it don't work. I'm not saying white people can't be in gangs, but, Kevin can do it. See, he's in a group. You're not a young man, though. You're not a young... I'm sorry, dude. I hate to break it to you.
I just watched a lot of Boys in the Hood when I was a kid.
I watched a lot of White Men Can't Jump in Money Train. I like the Snipes-Harrelson combination a little bit more. So, we don't want to talk about gang violence. We don't want to give descriptions of any of the suspects, but they're out there on the loose, and we have another festival coming up this weekend. Well, it sounds like they've got everything well in hand. They still haven't answered the description questions. They still haven't told us what actually caused this thing. They barely tell us anything. But let's do another press conference again today without any information. Here's Hannah Kim from Fox 13.
We have new information now that is shedding light into that 5-hour delay. We have new information coming in saying that between 7:45 and 8 p.m. Sunday night, that someone in your office talked to SPD leadership saying that they could not hold that press conference and SPD leadership wanted to actually hold it immediately. And they were told it was because of dignitaries. So I'm going to ask you again, did anyone in your office tell SPD leadership that they could not hold that press conference between 7:45 and 8 p.m. Sunday night?
That is not my understanding.
Do you know if there's anyone else?
Whoa, 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 whoa. That is not my understanding. It should be no. The buck stops with me, and I didn't tell them to hold the press conference, and they work for me. Who's actually running the mayor's office? And what are they telling her? She's lost so many staff members, I don't even know who's left anymore. So many of them have quit. That's not my understanding. You held up the press conference for Turd Ferguson and Pramila Jayapal, or your office held it up for you. That's all there is here. We were all hearing the same thing from our sources. They're awaiting dignitaries. That word is not one that normally gets used. Usually you say we're waiting for the VIPs to come. That's how it goes in government. Or we're waiting for the higher ranking officials to come. That's normally what they say when it's a press conference. They don't say dignitaries. That's a very specific word they're using here.
In your office that are making these calls without your knowledge?
That is not my understanding, no. So my understanding,
Wait a second. You just got asked who in your office is making the calls without your knowledge, and you go, that's not my understanding? Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Oh, that's not my understanding? That somebody else is running my office? That's not what they told me to say. They said there'd be no math. That's not what they told me to say. Mom, come pick me up. Mom, come pick me up. I've never had a real job before in my life. Mom, come pick me up. That's not my understanding? Oh, let's continue with this train wreck.
I shared yesterday is that, first of all, we had a lot of communication going back and forth between my office and SPD and our state and federal elected officials as we were trying to work together on the response to this incident.
When you have a mass shooting.
Hold on. And like I said, at Seattle Center, we had a scene of active investigation where the police were actively looking for suspects. And so my understanding is that we were told that it was not helpful to have me or other elected officials coming down to the scene while that active search was going on.
Then have it at City Hall. Then have it on that rooftop area that Ferguson loves so much. Have it anywhere else. Giuliani literally had a press conference while walking away from Ground Zero on 9/11. Literally walked several miles while talking to the press. Have it somewhere else. I'm not even sure who's running the show anymore.
And so we went back and forth and eventually landed on an appropriate time to address the press and to share information.
The appropriate time is as soon as this thing happens because you have suspects on the loose and the public is scared and the public doesn't know anything.
Is there a protocol right now if there is a big event like this that SPD has to clear it with your office? Is there some type of indirect order or an official order from your office where they are handcuffed and can't hold a press conference?
No.
Okay. Well, there is from Bob Ferguson's office. Bob Ferguson says every state agency has to run all communication through him. So how do we know the mayor's not doing the exact same thing? Because under Bruce Harrell, the former mayor, they made it so SPD communications ran through the mayor's office and they signed off on everything. Is that policy still in place? Hannah Kim wasn't backing down, though.
I think what makes it difficult to believe is because they have had significant training that we have heard about. They've paid tens of thousands of dollars to be trained by consultants. So they know exactly how to handle a situation like this. They have the information. They know when to put the information out. They know exactly how to do it. And they have certified, trained professional law enforcement who are well able to handle this without your attendance or anybody else. So how does this happen?
I just answered that question in my response to the other reporter.
No, you didn't answer that question. That's not Hannah Kim, by the way. I don't know who that was who was sitting next to her. But no, you didn't answer that question. What he's saying is in an emergency, normally the cops come out and the cops say, X amount of people are dead. We're looking for this suspect. We'll give you more information in an hour or in 2 hours. Then there's a few more people to press conference and they come out and they say, okay, we have more information. It's this, that, and the other thing. Then you have the big one with all the dignitaries. But everybody was so desperate to get their name in lights They went 5 hours without telling us a suspect was on the loose. There is still a possible suspect on the loose. They didn't tell us how many people were dead. They didn't tell us it was gang violence. They didn't tell us anything. We didn't know if it was terrorism, not terrorism. We didn't know anything. Nothing at all. This is the leadership of this city. Leadership, I'm using air quotes, by the way. This is them. Now, Sean Barnes, you might remember yesterday, blew up at a reporter. He didn't like being questioned about the fact that he wasn't in town. You remember this clip yesterday? So he almost punched a reporter right in the face, had to be dragged out of the room.
I have been here working as hard as I can for this city from the day I got here. You got that?
There are reports
no, you listen
but there
to
are
me.
reports that you are not in town often.
There are reports are wrong. Do you understand?
Let's go, man. Let's go.
You understand?
So when we're
I work.
Let's go. Thank you.
Okay, so now today he has to explain that away because everybody goes, dude lost his cool publicly. So he got asked about that, and here's what he said.
Chief Barnes, can you address what exactly happened yesterday, that heated exchange following the press conference? What was that all about?
Yeah, I wouldn't describe it as a heated exchange, but that's okay. Listen, I respect our media. I respect what you do. I consider you a big part of the community.
Stop. If you want to call that a heated exchange, what would you call it? Everybody called that a heated exchange. That's exactly what it was. A dude had to separate the two of you and drag you out of the room. Oh, but I love the media. I love the media. You know, that's on a flashcard somewhere.
I wish I could do it, but I don't have a face for television. But let me say this. I'm always passionate about what I do as a...
Oh, so you were just passionate. That's why you almost punched out a reporter, right? Just because you were passionate. Thank God Jonathan Cho was in the room and wasn't listening to his long, rambling BS. Jonathan Cho goes for the jugular. There's going to be one reporter before him, but then Jonathan Cho is going to pipe up and go right for the jugular. Here we go.
Do you want to just squash the discourse about, you not being in town enough?
Yeah, part of being a leader is being here, being visible, and being present. Part of being...
You do none of that, but sure, continue.
A leader in a major city is that sometimes I have obligations, and I wanted to be at the conference to support one of our community members who was getting an award.
That's nice, but you live in Chicago.
One of our community service officers.
I have your voting records.
That was also getting an award from...
I also have your tax lien records.
The National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives.
How often do you travel to Chicago? Your wife and kids still live there. I'd like to know how often on weekends you travel there and who's paying for that.
Certainly I don't travel as often as I would like to, I think.
But you do travel there. And who's paying for it?
Any reports that I'm gone every weekend are grossly misstated. I don't have that kind of money. I'm here.
You get paid $374,000 a year. You have an apartment in Seattle. You have a house in Chicago. You have a family you're paying for. Yeah, actually, you do have that kind of money. I have filed a public disclosure request to find out exactly how many times this dude goes back and forth and who's paying for it.
In Seattle, I love the neighborhood that I live in. I love my community. They love me.
Stop. Here's how I know he's lying. I know where his building is. His building is one of the buildings near the Lumen Field, right there near the stadiums. It's right there. There's no community there. There's no community. You live near a stadium, dude. It's a swanky building. No, you don't have a community. They don't love you. They don't even know you're there, except maybe they do know you're there because an armed escort shows up every single day to put you in the armored SUV and drive you 6 blocks over to City Hall. That's your community.
Know me. They see me all the time. Don't love the rent that I'm paying, but, affordability is something that we're working on. Is that right, Mayor?
You picked one of the most expensive buildings in Seattle that has a view of the water and a view of the stadiums and is very, very swanky. And you're complaining about affordability when you have an apartment here in Seattle and you have a house in Chicago and you fly back and forth all the time. We're working on that, Mayor, right? Now this is just CYA mode. This is just cover your you-know-what, because everybody realized the emperor has no clothes. Everybody realized how incompetent these fools are. And this is who's running our city. We go to the KVI studio line, take a call from Elaine in Seattle. Elaine, what's going on?
I was just wondering, if there's any record of the shooter's past crime history and who the judges are that let him off. That's the case.
So are we talking about the dead one or are we talking about the live ones?
Either.
Okay. So the dead one now,
my guess is
according to the court documents we have right now, Elaine, the dead one doesn't have any crimes that were referred previously in King County. That doesn't mean there weren't in other counties. He's 15. He's 15 years old, so who knows when his life of crime began. We don't have the answer for those questions yet, but I have asked for the answers to those questions. Regarding the dead gang member, there are social media pages that say this person had other crimes. I don't know how many of them they were actually prosecuted for. I don't know if they were actually let out of jail, but I have filed for their criminal history, so I'll try to get that for you.
Oh, that's good to know because, with an election coming up and you wonder about also, in addition to the mayor and police chief, who are these judges that are letting these young criminals off?
Yeah, that's a great question. But here's something else. Don't forget this, Elaine. There is one suspect for sure on the loose right now, assuming these two can be believed. There's another one they're not sure if a person's on the loose right now. And they haven't given us names. They haven't given us descriptions. They haven't even given us the clothing they are wearing. So what are we supposed to do with that? As I said to my son when I picked him up yesterday from the airport, he comes home and I go, so did you do the, he asked me, he said, Dad, give me all the detail on the shooting. I go, well, did you do it? And he goes, I was in California. How would I have done it? And I said, well, you're a young man. You fit the description. And he just laughs. He goes, no, come on, Dad. What's the real description? I go, no, you're a young man. That's all we have in the description here. I went to the movies with my brother-in-law yesterday. I told him the same thing. I said, that's it. That's the description. He goes, oh, of course. Black gang member. Yeah, that's what looks like is going on right now. But they don't want to actually say that. Somebody, Elaine, I'll tell you this, okay? Somebody sent me a picture of the dead gang member on the ground splayed out at Seattle Center, okay? I'm not posting it. But we knew who this guy was yesterday before they gave us the information because the picture matched the one on all the social media pages about the gang violence. And yet they won't confirm it, and yet they wouldn't admit it until today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very sad that 15-year-olds, resort to that. But, to blame for this, even this gang member's death, and of course the other people are liberal policies that don't punish crime the first time. And my guess is that these kids, had crimes that were not as bad as this murder, and people were just let go instead of facing consequences which may change their life.
Yeah.
And it's a tragedy all around.
Well, think about this for a second. Actually, Dave makes a great point on the text line, Elaine. Thanks for the call, Elaine. Appreciate you being part of the show. Dave makes a great point on the text line. Do you remember the day before the shooting, 2 guys jumped off the Space Needle? 2 guys the day before the shooting. Did we arrest them? Did we find them? They were pretty conspicuous with the giant colored parachutes. Oh, wait, was that a racial remark? Okay. All right, so what happens is they jump off the Space Needle, and yet nobody can find those guys. They never arrested those guys. And now you're going to find a shooter somewhere? No. This is incompetence on full display. Full display. Unbelievable that they can't catch any of these guys. They can't even give us a description, and yet they're asking for the public's help in finding them. The absolute incompetence. They can't even run a press conference. They can't even admit whether or not they're the ones in charge. They can't even explain what led up to a decision that postponed a press conference for 5 hours. So much that every member of the media's electronic equipment was dying. Maybe that was the goal. I had to come back to the studio. Maybe that was the goal. Well, I'll tell you what, my friends. The Seattle Times, you know what they were focusing on today? They were focusing on the guns. So you've got a suspect on the loose. You potentially have another suspect on the loose. You've got the Bite of Seattle booths being raided because nobody was guarding it after they kicked everybody out. They had a crime scene that was not secured. I was able to walk through the crime scene yesterday, and now they're out there again today looking for evidence. You had a press conference delayed for 5 hours. We don't know who's actually running the show. But the Seattle Times, their headline today was about the guns. About the guns. Not the gang violence, not who these people are, the guns. What is this, Chicago? And we both reached for the gun, the gun, the gun, the gun. That's all they talk about. Man, too many musicals running through my head today. Kevin shaking his head. He's like, wait a second. You did West Side Story and Chicago in the same segment? Yeah, you betcha you know what I did. That's why I'm an ex-theater kid. But this ex-theater kid can run a better MC duties than our mayor, than our police chief. I can run a better press conference than these guys, and I could probably run a better city than these guys also. Because you know what? I have experience, and I've had jobs. Up next, my friends, John Carlson will be joining us to weigh in on all this. Don't forget, coming up at 6 o'clock, the Ari Hoffman Show Reloaded, brought to you by our friends over at Wade's Eastside Guns and Bellevue Indoor Range. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.